Welcome to the Pass the Controller podcast. I am Matt, joined as usual by Doc.
No.
Ever the witty one, Doc.
uh, you know where this is going today. Fisticuffs.
That it is, lad. And how appropriate, being the day after Leprechaun Day.
And for some reason, you still have the fake accent.
Of course.
They
It's my
mailed it to you,
favorite.
and you wanted to keep using it. Get your
It
money's
comes it
worth.
comes free with every bottle of Guinness.
Oh,
Alright,
explains why I don't
so,
have one. They
so
don't have
we...
an accent for bourbon. Ah ha ha ha!
Yeah, probably be like a bourbon accent.
It might just be like you drink the bourbon and then you're happy. That
It
accent.
sounds like every drunk from a Disney movie. Yeah. Yep,
That one.
that one. So, Metal Gear Solid 5 launched today. Ground Zeroes, not
Part
not
of it.
the
Yeah.
not the real one. Anyways,
The prologue.
and so with that, there were a few interesting articles that popped up about a rather short campaign for Metal Gear Solid 5. I wish I would have been smart enough to pull up the article.
Oh.
But then Hideo Kojima retorted back and was like, yeah, I guess, if you run straight through it, it's only 2 hours. But it's
Yeah.
not like that kind of game. You're supposed to kind of explore, and it's not your normal linear MGS title.
Yeah.
But it brings up interesting thoughts in regards to price points and gameplay length. Right now, the game is $28.99 new, or
20.
$29.99 new,
Right.
or whatever,
Oh.
somewhere around there.
Hidden secret pricing. Blah, blah, blah.
Ask your local retailer
Uh,
for prices. Anyways,
it's $50 because you asked about it.
I'm sure it's cheaper on Amazon too. It's like
Probably.
27.34. I don't, whatever.
Plus
Um,
shipping, it's like 32
Plus
bucks.
shipping. Yeah, ends up being more expensive. Good times, guys. Anyways, so I think that we should talk about uh, prices and game length and what sort of correlation those have, and if they should have a correlation at all. You wanna jump in right away with your thoughts, Doc, or
No, just baseline price points and game length. We're not considering
yeah,
anything else.
yeah, just in regards to because a lot of people really highly regard a lot of gameplay hours in their game,
No,
and
certainly.
so obviously it's in part to justify the rather absurd price tag that games are going for nowadays.
Now, see,
Which I
I
mean,
come from an era
wait a
that's.
minute.
God damn
I
it!
I said which.
Oh,
I was gonna mention that older games are more expensive,
yeah.
but those
Okay.
were on cartridges, not 4-cent discs.
Okay. So is your thought
Oh, go
process
ahead.
done now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Because you keep pausing and I hear something and I was like, okay, so when can I talk?
Anyways, so then would you have to consider? No, I'm just kidding.
So then Jenny, she came to the bar and she. Okay.
OMG, no way.
Oh my god! But, alright, so barring what I was about to say, and I was actually about to throw in the example of Super Metroid, but we'll come back to that in a bit.
Okay.
Games today, uh, I think the price point is only partially determined by the amount of gameplay hours in it. Consider, if you may, something like Gears of War or something like the campaigns in the latest Call of Duty games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, these are AAA titles. We have hated the shit out of them. Well, not Gears of War specifically, but Call of Duty, pretty high up
Yeah.
there on the pass the controller shit list. Would not
About
pass.
that, Doc.
Um,
A guilty pleasure.
oh, even though we've hated the shit out of it, and we have a Judas in our mists. Mists. Midst of mists.
And
Um,
his name is Matt, not yeah. Brian has an STD. Anyways.
oh Jesus. Um, but just considering stuff like that, if I remember correctly, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance winds up being the average for those sort of games winds up being between 8 and 12 hours long.
Right.
Now, if we're looking proportionally at, we'll use the example of 2 to 3 hours long for Metal Gear Solid 5. If we're looking proportionally
Mm-hmm.
to things that are much longer in length, I think I'm rambling at this point, but we'll just say something that's 30 hours long will go for $59.99, and Metal Gear Solid 5 winds up going for $29.99. Shouldn't that put Call of Duty and others between the 8 and 12 hour mark in the range of 39.49, somewhere around there?
Well, I mean, you have to consider the fact that most of your gameplay hour in Call of Duty and Gears of War is actually going to come from the online multiplayer.
Okay, but we're talking campaign. I mean, if we're going to toss out what Kojima said,
Yep.
then fucking we're talking campaign here. We're
Right.
talking
But
straight through beeline campaign.
right. But Metal Gear Solid 5 doesn't have multiplayer, does it?
It does not.
Right. So what I'm saying is that in Call of Duty, some people,
Oh, we
not
can't.
saying me, might have 36 hours of gameplay on the online multiplayer.
Okay, and the campaign for Super Smash Bros. Melee is approximately 20 minutes long.
Right, of
And I
course.
have put enough
And to
time
be
into
fair,
that to make it stop counting.
right.
Okay, so if we're going to toss out Kojima's bit about it being longer if you don't, futz around in the overworld, then we're going to
Right.
toss
I guess
multiplayer
I see
too.
what you're saying from point A to point B. Gotcha.
Yeah, we're not going to even consider multiplayer in this if we're going to do that.
Right.
Because if we're considering multiplayer, we're adding
I'm
in a variable that will be very difficult to measure.
I'm talking more along the lines of consumers' perceived gameplay hours, not like campaign.
That would be, well, how
You
do
know what
you
I'm
measure
saying?
multiplayer?
How do there's timers on multiplayer games that tell
And
you how long you've spent, so that you can feel that you have spent an appropriate amount of money and have gotten your money's worth by playing so many hours into Modern Warfare 2.
but that could be one particular person. That's not going to be an average amongst the consumer base.
Right.
And it's going to be skewed horribly by those
Of
folks that
course.
just they don't have a job, they don't have anything else to do but stay at home and play, Call of Duty
Video games,
all
yeah.
day.
Well,
So it's
yeah.
going to be skewed by that.
But yeah, I guess you're right. And I
If we're
think this
going to
brings up the point that I think we're both going to eventually get to, and that associating a certain price with a game is ridiculous. Like amount of gameplay hours.
yeah, it's
That's just
it's
ridiculous.
it's not a good idea. That's the thing. Um, we have to consider, like, we're going back to the multiplayer bit here, but
Right.
you have to consider solid measurable hours of gameplay which the developers accounted for. So
Right.
be that campaign, be that some form of forced multiplayer a la Brink, etc., etc. Um, you have to. It has to be that if you're going to consider that. We can't just throw in this weird online multiplayer aspect.
Uh
But
huh.
yeah,
So here's my thing with associating games with price points. Games are art, and you can't really put a price on art except for how much I guess you enjoy that piece. I mean, to me it's like how long are you going to stare at a painting, right?
right,
That
right.
you paid millions of dollars for. It's like it it's not you can't just say this is going to give me x amount of hours of enjoyment. So if you multiply this amount by this amount, then we're going to get uh, the clear resulted number of this many gameplay hours equals this much money. because it's silly, really. You're paying ultimately for an experience.
You are.
It's like I guess a theme park would be a very good example. You pay anywhere it's probably $50 to go to a theme park, right?
Okay.
How much time do you actually spend riding rides in a theme park?
Very little.
Right. So you're not paying for the amount of time of enjoyment you're getting. You're paying for the experience, the thrill of riding the roller coasters, or if you're like me, the little kiddie roller coaster. But so it's a different type of I guess thing, really, because of what we're talking about. It can't be quantified.
Right.
You can't quantify enjoyment necessarily with hours played. There are some games where they have lots of hours of not fun gameplay
Yeah.
and not enjoyment, and they're not worth the price tag, even though they have tons of hours in them.
Right. Right. But yeah, what you're going with here. Initially, when you started that whole spiel about
Yep.
the games are art, thus you can't put a price on that. Eh, that's why
Yeah.
we have the whole review score system
Sure.
in various places and all of that. You
Well,
can't just base it entirely off of the amount of time played. I mean, given
no,
that, okay, let me.
no, go.
Um, given that, we'll take it back to 1994. If we were pricing things based on the amount of time played, and this is taking into account the fact that games were 70 to $80 back then, just because cartridges. Seriously, what the fuck? But Super Metroid is a game designed to be beatable in under 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It is designed for you to be able to complete the game, to see what you need to see in order for the plot to happen in under 3 hours. That is what it's designed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is something that retailed for 70, $80. It would be
Yeah.
something that, if it were released today, would start at 59.99 because it is actually a very good game. It got pretty awesome review scores back in the day. People still herald it as being something fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's something that's designed to just, I don't know, just breeze through it.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good example. Um, I mean, like I said, I think ultimately what you're really paying for is the experience.
You're paying for the game as a whole and not just for the hours issued.
Yeah, but I think that for some reason, somewhere along the line, people expect a certain amount because they're spending so much money. Because whether today or yesteryear, ugh, I hate myself for saying that. Anyways, either today or back in 1994, um, games are expensive. They're
Games have
they
been
are.
and still will be, yes.
I mean, 60 bucks, $80, that's a lot of money. So I feel like for some reason people will be like, well, if I get so much, if I get so many hours into it, if I if I get so much fun out of it, that's worth my money. And so, like I said, to me it doesn't make sense, but I kind of see where the logic comes from because I used to be one of those people. I used to be like, well, how many gameplay hours does this game have? How many? And I think that was like back when I got like 2 games a year. I was
Yeah.
a kid. That was it. I got 2 games a year, and so like, that was more because I only got 2 games a year to play. You know, so I had to like make them last. But as an adult, I find it extremely ridiculous because I have more than enough money to buy games that I want to play and some that I will probably never play. Oh, growing collection.
It's called a backlog. We've all got one.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
do understand where some of that comes from, though. The
sure.
issue being where you go out and you purchase a game, and if you haven't already done the research beforehand, realize that, well, I've just paid for a 5 hour experience. I'd put down $60. There it is.
Yep.
Now, I could be I could be genuinely disappointed if that 5 hours did not have something else to back it up.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
if it didn't have an interesting plot, if it didn't have awesome fucking gameplay. I'm looking at you, Vanquish. You have an amazing plot, or not amazing plot, but fantastic gameplay to back up your really short time. I am more than willing to spend $60 on something that's going to be, even if it's super short, going to be fantastic aside.
Right. Eh,
I'm also more than willing to spend $60 on fucking Fallout New Vegas, which I will
yes.
play for the next 60 hours.
Mm.
I'm going to use one more example for that. Tearaway for the Vita is ridiculously, incredibly short.
Yeah. It's
And
also really cheap though too, isn't it?
it was full price for a Vita game.
Really? I think it's like
Barring
$30 now.
now, I bought it at launch.
Okay.
Okay, but
Uh,
I I bought it at launch, and I feel that my money price, the whatever we want to call that, was validated. I was
mhm.
more than perfectly happy to play that because it was such a charming experience, even though it was very, very short.
Right. And I, I think that price, like gameplay hours, should be. I guess it's not illogical to consider it. I mean, obviously, $60 for a 2 hour game is a bit much to ask. So I think that it's not completely unreasonable
Right.
to expect a thing. But I think that it's really funny that everyone's throwing a fit because it's a $30 game. And the funniest part is people spend $20-$30 on a Blu-ray, which the movie could be anywhere between an hour and a half to 3 hours.
Yeah, and you don't
For
push anything to interact with any of that.
yeah, exactly. It's I don't know. It's funny.
So
It's
what you're
just funny.
the word you're looking for, I think, is idiots because they don't consider this. They're just like, I hate this. I'm
It's not
not going
even.
to spend $30 on this because it's got 2 hours of gameplay because they won't consider the rest of it. And then they immediately go somewhere else. It's like, I will
Well,
buy this $30 thing that will not last as long and not be as interesting.
I don't think it's necessarily that as much as it's kind of funny. It's almost like it's it's like they don't. It's not that they're stupid. It's just that they don't consider it because the way that the market's been set up.
What you're
People
looking,
expect
they're
for
ignorant because
sixty
they're not
dollars.
doing the research.
They expect at least an 8 hour campaign, even in a game like Call of Duty, which is supposed to just be multiplayer only. And then Titanfall changed all of that. But
No.
Titanfall, by the way, pretty good, pretty good. Um, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about.
Was
Yeah,
Titanfall?
Titanfall.
Okay,
Well,
can we because I'm
yeah,
still on this topic at the moment.
sure, sure, sure.
Um one of my things to a game is if it's going to be something that's fantastic and your only complaint about it is the
Is that
fact
it's too
that it
short?
was too short,
Yeah,
isn't that just saying I wish I had more steak? Or I wish
that's
I had more ice cream, even though the ice cream was so good, I wish I had more.
that's
That's
my that's my big that's my big philosophy with games. Actually,
it's not really a
if
complaint about the game itself if you just want more.
right, if a game leaves me wanting more, it was a fantastic game. If I by any part in the game I'm like, ugh, I just want to beat this thing and get it over with, then you have done something horrible and stretched out the experience too far, and that is not worth my money.
No.
A game that is too short, that is fine. That is, I will gladly slap down my money for a game that leaves me wanting more. But a game that overdraws itself, that's makes me mad.
There's like one notable exception to this that I'm going to mention outright. Golden
Yep.
Sun. Camelot
Okay.
Software, you string me along like a puppet every fucking time and you end on a cliffhanger. That is not fair. Then you did it again, and I sit here waiting. I want to know what happens. Tell me. Tell me the story in the form of a game, please.
Give me more of the golden sun. So, you want to change topic now?
You want to talk about Titanfall.
I want to talk a little bit about Titanfall.
I don't have a lot to say on the topic, but go ahead.
Okay, well, you will.
Will I?
It's not. I'm actually not talking about. I guess specifically in the game Titanfall. I think that the game is good. I think it's a step in the right direction. I feel like they stole a lot from Brink, but that's fine.
Oh yeah.
I miss Brink. So it's a good game. It wanted to be a good game, Doc. It really wanted to be.
But
Just,
instead, it was bad.
just they hired the worst net programmers on the face of the earth.
They did.
Ugh, so bad. So Titanfall is very interesting. Titanfall is I think going to be the reason for Xbox catching up to Sony.
Is it?
And here's why. Titanfall is a game for most people, not people like me or you, Doc,
Okay.
but for a lot of people that is a reason to go out and buy an Xbox One by itself.
I
That
actually
game,
have a few friends that are considering that. My
yeah.
friend in Canada is legitimately asking me, says, "Is this a good idea?"
hmm
Well, is it something that you would like to play enough to purchase a console? And
Yeah,
will you
consider
regret your purchase later?
that ultimately you're going to be paying what $560 to play this one game.
Yes.
Is it worth that price to you? And honestly, it's pretty good. As somebody who really was into Call of Duty and shooter games like that, that game has everything I want and more. That game is fun. There are like times in that game when you're like you got the Titan and then you're facing two other people and they got Titans and somehow you make it out alive. It's crazy. That game is like
Wait, hold up. You have an Xbox One?
no, no, a buddy of mine does.
Oh.
I played it. No, I don't have an Xbox One. Why would I buy one of those?
I don't know because you're talking about Titanfall.
Well, here's the thing about Titanfall. I actually considered, and I was like, no, it's too much. I would pay the $60 for Titanfall. That is fine, but I'm not into that whole thing anymore. I've moved on with my life. I play Demon Souls for 20 hours a day now. We're good.
You're getting your ass kicked by the Flame Lurker.
Shut up.
Everyone gets their ass kicked by the Flame Lurker.
Listen. He only had 10% of his health left, Doc. Okay. So close. Anyways, so
How hard did you throw
Titanfall.
the controller?
Titanfall, I think, is really a game that is going to help sell that console. Because right now, that is a console selling worthy game. That game, and here's the big thing too. The Xbox One. It's like, oh well, it sucks. It's too pricey. You gotta buy this, and it's not as good as the PlayStation. It's not games focused, and blah. And then all of a sudden, Titanfall comes out. So now what you have is you have one really great exclusive game on the Xbox One, and you got nothing on the PS4. There's
You're
not one console-worthy buying game on the PlayStation 4 right now.
not at the moment.
Again, it's opinionated, but I mean,
Here's the thing though. You're missing the bit where they're also releasing Titanfall on the Xbox 360, which is a mistake.
yeah, but consider I can guarantee you that because of the improved graphics, because you're right, it would hurt. I think if it was only available on the Xbox One, then you're right. But I think that it's clearly a better experience on the Xbox One than it will be on the 360.
Is it a $560
That's a
better
good question.
experience?
But if you're gonna buy a next gen console anyways, right? Titanfall isn't on the PS4.
No, it isn't.
So if you're gonna eventually buy the next gen experience, why not go Xbox One and play your Titanfall? So
That's
I don't think that this is going to cause Xbox to sell more than the PS4. I don't
right.
think that, but I think it's going to level the playing field a lot
I think
until
that you're
Sony has something.
I think that you're also basing this on a lot of conditionals. Like,
Oh yeah,
um, you have you've had experience seeing people like what they want to purchase versus what they already have.
mm-hmm.
People who are already happy enough with their Xbox 360 are actually finding
Sure,
it like finding issue with needing to upgrade. Oh, they released another one? Why?
yeah.
Why
Which
is it
is
called the
funny.
Xbox One? Is it really that much better? Yeah, we're still in that time period where
Hey,
everyone's trying to determine what the fuck this thing even
it's
is.
it's hard to explain to someone who's not a gamer why the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One are necessary. because the graphics don't look that much better, and that's what the public sees is graphics. They're like, oh, it has way better graphics. It's so much, but that's not actually what makes it better. What makes it better is the processing and the way that the architecture is built, and just it's so much. You can have so much more going on.
You can.
I mean, the graphics don't look all that much better because the polygons aren't that much higher count, and the textures. I mean, the textures are way higher. I mean,
We're,
the textures are really much what's better. The
we're
textures and the particle effects and the shininess of everything. Looks
we're
like everything's on the Unreal 3 engine.
we're also at a point in time in which we're still designing new games with
Uh huh.
previous games' philosophies in them.
Sure.
That's like comparing when the PS1 came out, or the PS1's end of life to the
Right.
PS2's start of
And
life.
that's what I
Look
was
at
gonna get to too.
look at
Is that
Eco. I don't actually recall how to pronounce that properly, but
Ico? I think it's
Ico.
Ico.
Okay, that one. Look at that. That is actually something that was planned for the PlayStation 1. And we'll just use that as a baseline as compared to later in the console's lifespan, what they were able to do.
Shadow of the Colossus.
Even do midway through the lifespan.
Oh sure.
There's going to be a massive like improvement in every aspect of it as developers understand how to start developing for this stuff. I think it'll be a lot quicker than in previous generations, considering we're just using PC architecture at this point, but we
Right.
still got to give it a bit. We still got to have, like, the consoles have held the PC back.
Yeah.
Give it a bit for it to finally spread its wings and, keep
I think
going.
that's true too. You have to remember that basically people have been developing Xbox 360 and PS3 games for 8 years now,
Oh, yeah.
and they've maybe had a year to be hands on with a developer kit, maybe even two, with the Xbox One. And for most of that time, they didn't even know the specs. In fact, I don't think Xbox had the specs out until like E3. Like they weren't ready for.
Yeah.
So it's like it's gonna be a while before they like really fine tune it. And I think like the biggest example is like look at a game. Oh, I don't know. Like I guess you could even compare Halo 3 to Halo 4.
Okay.
Halo 4 looks gorgeous, although it's quite obviously that they cheated a bunch to make Halo 4 look as good as it does. But I mean that's part of it. They know where to cheat, how to make it work. And so that's gonna be it. They're gonna have to figure out a little bit. So you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I think that Titanfall is definitely going to help level the playing field. I don't know how much.
I don't think
Who
it'll help
knows?
level it. It might put a little bit of a dent in, like,
Right.
the PS4's lead, but not. That's not going to move the millions of units required to catch up to the PS4 at this point.
Oh yeah, I don't think so. But like I said, it'll. Who knows? Because like maybe not immediately, but all of a sudden now you have Titanfall and like maybe a couple other exclusives like Titanfall. Dead Rising 3 was pretty fun. Not something I'd buy the console for, but it's
Mhm.
exclusive to Xbox One. So now you're like, oh, I can play Titanfall and I can play that Dead Rising 3 game, and who knows, next Halo comes out or more Call of Duty maps. I don't know. Whatever. It's
Yeah, they.
just
Yeah.
whatever the kids are into these days.
You also have to consider, if we're just talking sheer sales numbers between the two consoles, there are regions that the Xbox One will not sell in.
Oh yeah. They're
Consider
also
they're just there's a big part of the gaming world that they can move like a couple of units at most because they're a Western developed console.
sure.
They do not sell in Japan at all.
Listen, listen. We aren't talking about the one who's going to truly win this console war, the Wii U.
Ha
No,
ha.
you know what's really funny? I read an article today that the Wii U is outselling the PlayStation 4 in Japan
This is the case at the moment.
because because Japan loves adorable, cute things like Mario in a catsuit. So I mean, who knows? The Wii U could come out the victor, Doc. People right now they're like, hey, you know what? Graphics aren't that much better. Why not just go and buy a Wii U, and you could play so many great games made by Nintendo, and only Nintendo.
Hmm.
Uh,
We'll
and
see
then
how it
also
all.
Monster Hunter.
We'll see how it all pans out.
Yeah,
To be honest, I can't choose a side in the. I shouldn't choose a side to begin with, but I can't really choose
right.
a side in this next generation coming out because neither of them has a whole lot to offer at this point.
No,
We're seeing
as
at the very basic. This is someone who, this is actually hypocrisy on my point, but um, I've actually been suggesting to people that you have a list of games that you would like to pick up for the console beforehand on picking it up.
right.
And because I've been burned on the last 3 console launches that I went launch day for. That would
Uh,
be the Vita,
mm-hmm,
the Wii U, and the
mm-hmm.
3DS.
That's
I
true.
have had a
But
lot of time with no games.
to be fair, the 3DS that worked out pretty good.
Oh, it was beautiful. And the Vita is actually, you know what? All 3 of them. I don't regret picking them up at this point. At the point in time in which I bought them, fast forward about a month after that, I was mad as hell.
Oh yeah,
I think you recall how fucking mad I was.
which is why I think Sony and Microsoft are trying to push a lot of games at launch. But then I think what happened was that developers realized that they have no idea how to program for the new systems. Like Watch Dogs, you could see Watch Dogs. Look at like their E3 from what was it 2012 versus their E3 from like 2013 or whatever, and it's just like night and day. Like you can tell that there's a reason why that game has been delayed so much, and it's just because they were expecting this amount to be able to output, and then all of a sudden they can't do it.
To be fair, it's also Ubisoft.
Yeah,
And
well,
they're kind of a special case when it comes to developing games. Where they're just like,
special.
we're going to make a game and it's going to come out on this day. Nope, it's not going to come out on that day. We're going to delay it a
That's not
whole
true.
bunch, and then we're going to delay it a whole bunch.
That's not true.
Rayman Legends.
That's not true. What about Assassin's Creed? That comes out what they say.
It does.
Sure, the game suffers a whole bunch and is awful at
Because there
launch.
would be a riot if they didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed, you used to be good. I used to like you. You were
I
the cool
didn't
kid
ever.
once. Really?
Never.
Listen. For the first one was really good. If you take out how repetitive it was because of the gameplay hour thing that we were talking about earlier, but like they had really focused assassinations. So like you could get in and out without being seen. It was fantastic. You
I'm a
can't
little
do that in the
biased
new
when it comes
ones.
to that, though. Because I
Yeah.
had already played. Before that, I had played Deus Ex. So I'm under the
Uh huh.
impression that the stealth based gameplay and, generally being quiet and not being fucking obnoxious was going to be up to that sort of level. And then after, like
Hmm.
before that, I had also played Human Revolution.
The first one is first Assassin's Creed is really funny. If you run, you'll catch the guard's attention.
You will, because
It's
there's a speed limit.
fantastic. It's so great.
Um,
The other ones you can run circles around them, and the guards won't do anything. It's just like what are
I
you
also
doing?
played it on the PS3, and there is no fucking reason why it should have run that poorly.
Oh, it was so bad on the PS3. I'm sorry.
And
I played it on the 360.
and before
Yeah.
that, I had also played Infamous, so none of this stuff was special
Oh
to me
man.
at all.
Can we talk about Infamous for a second?
Please?
Game is awesome.
Yes, it is.
It is everything a superhero game should be and more.
It's simultaneously dark and hilarious, and I love
It's
it.
delightful.
I okay. I'm gonna real anecdotal bit here.
Right? Go
Um,
for it.
I You can save people in it because you can be the super dude powered by electricity. I can be
Yep.
Static Shock. It's fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I saved a bunch of people from some other random person. I was like, oh, this is wonderful. And they came up to celebrate with me. They came up to tell me how cool of a dude I was. And then they all fell over dead because I was standing in a puddle.
Mm. I love that game. That's
it's it's
hilarious.
so like even it's got issues to it, but
Oh,
I'm
of
willing
course.
to overlook that just because of the sheer fun of playing the game.
That's it. I mean, it's more fun than a big old mess. Which I mean, Assassin's Creed there was a big old mess
Oh
for
my
that first
god.
one, especially in the PS3. But there's some good stuff to it. I mean, I
I
think like really the coolest part about Assassin's Creed is the end. After you beat the game, that part is just mind-blowingly awesome.
see
Because
I couldn't put up with like
no, I understand.
Altair is I have I'm looking at it right now. Spoilers, I'm in my bedroom looking at the doorknob to my door. and it has more personality than Altair.
Oh yeah,
Look,
yeah.
there's a splotch right there
Listen,
from like the palm resid. Yeah, that's a thing.
if you think, listen, at least Altair is sassy. He is sassy. He's full of sass. He's
He's
the
just
sass
a
master.
douche.
Listen, listen. Have you played the new Assassin's Creed games?
Nope.
Connor and Yoho Fiddly D Pirate Man, they're like they're like walls when it comes to personality. They're like robots. It is ridiculous how it's like I must. Connor's the worst. He's like the most cliched North American Indian ever. It's like I must honor my people. I must blah blah. It's just like you gotta be kidding me. The Wind Falcon tells me to do so. It's like, oh, you gotta be joking me.
No.
It's just so ridiculous.
I'm
The
going to.
absurd.
I'm gonna take this like. There is a point in time in the Assassin's Creed bits like I have had the
Uh,
chance to play the second one a
oh
little
yeah,
bit, and what I did play
this
of it, I enjoyed because Ezio,
Ezio's the best.
he was an asshole,
Oh, of
but
course,
he was
he's
like
charming.
one of those assholes. It's like that's all right, kind of like Robert Downey Jr. That's it.
Yep.
That was Ezio, and he in one fell swoop, like he pissed off so many people in
Hmm.
one fell swoop, and I was never so proud of another video game character.
It's funny.
It was amazing.
Honestly, Ezio, the Brotherhood was probably the best Assassin's Creed, if I'm being objective.
Oh,
But I just liked I don't know I liked so much in the first one. It had so much potential. I feel like Obi-Wan. You were supposed to be the chosen one. But it
you were
just I don't
supposed
know.
to run at
You're
30
right,
frames a second.
and I think that's like the big thing that separates that separates
It's
like.
over, Anakin. I have the higher processor clock speed.
uh,
Let us
but
battle in the lava.
I think
Red Ring
that's
of
the funny
Death.
thing too. It's like, oh my goodness.
Continue.
Are you done with your computing jokes?
No. Continue.
Anyways, I think that Ezio was a really fantastic character for that series, and they put so much heart and affection, and you could tell that the development team wanted to make those games. And then, spoiler alert, they killed off Desmond so that they could elongate the series, and you can tell how upset and just not wanting to do the game anymore the development team is.
Oh,
It's soulless.
Ubisoft.
It's
Why would you do
soulless.
this?
Because they wanted something. They looked at Call of Duty and they're like, oh, they make one of these every year. Look at how much money Activision gets. Let's do that. Assassin's Creed.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Sucks.
it's it's pretty stupid. It's I don't know. How did we even start talking about Assassin's Creed?
I have no idea.
Oh, good.
Why? Why don't we? Why don't we like segue off of that to something else? Because
Dark
Assassin's.
Souls 2.
Okay.
Talk,
Uh.
tell me about it, Doc. Because I want to
Oh.
play this game so bad.
But spoilers. You want to go into it knowing
Listen,
absolutely
listen,
nothing.
Doc. I have already seen so many gameplay hours in that game.
Have you?
Yeah, because
Oh.
I can't help myself.
Oh, there is an enemy in that game. I'm just gonna like. I'm not gonna go too far into this at
Is it
all.
the exploding zombies?
Fuck those guys. I was in a mud puddle while they were running at me. I'm like, why are you on fire? Why are you
I
exploding? What the fuck is your problem?
I was watching a let's play of it, and the poor guy had an exploding zombie knock him off a bridge. The
Fantastic.
the funniest part about that let's play is just like every time he walks into an area, he's like, okay, well, this is the hardest part of the game.
Oh,
And it's funny because it's true.
it's the entire
Bec-
game.
Because every part of that game is the hardest part of the game.
Yeah.
It's just a different kind of hard,
Here's the thing.
which is why
If
it's so fantastic.
for the audience out there, if you have not played a Souls game,
Yep.
if you come back,
Right.
say you're at the end of the game, you've leveled
Hmm.
up so much, you have the best equipment for your level up. That's the thing. There is no best equipment. There is how you build your character. You
That's true.
come
Yeah.
back to the first area, and there's a dude with a torch. And you're like, all right, I'm going to fuck this guy up. And you've got all this confidence. You're fucking showboating. You've got both
Yep.
your hands out. Come at
Mm-hmm.
me, bro. Okay? He fucks you up with a torch and you die.
Yep.
That can happen
Yep. I had that happen today to me.
because you're showboating. The
Yep.
game does not tolerate showboating.
I thought I was gonna do a dodge roll attack into an enemy,
Yeah?
and then I didn't, and then I died on a little stupid guy with a pickaxe.
Yep. Now, I'm going to take a moment and mention that Dark Souls 2 has one of the most intimidating enemies I have ever run into in a video game. I've been playing video games since before the NES.
Yep.
I had an Apple II. Was my first games console, quotations. Um, I've played tons of shit on the NES. I've played the Super
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo. You name it, I've probably played it. It's just that thing. They call it the Pursuer, and it's just this guy. He's got a big bundle of all kinds of weaponry on his back. He's about a head and a half taller than you are, and he has a sword that's bigger than you. And he just shows up. He gets airlifted there by a bird, and then just shows up, and I'm like, okay, so this isn't a problem at all. And then he starts levitating. And you realize that someone who might be a little bit slower is no longer going to be slow because he's not limited by what's on the ground. This is like if Sephiroth from Kingdom Hearts
Sephiroth.
suddenly grew a pair of balls and showed up in Dark Souls to
I'm
kick the
sorry.
shit out of you.
Did you just say Sephiroth from Kingdom Hearts?
Yes.
Oh, is he different than from Final Fantasy VII?
Yeah, because Final Fantasy VII, he's an expected boss that you're supposed to fight.
Oh,
And
I
you're like,
got you.
okay, that's whatever. No, he's a super boss in Kingdom Hearts. And he's intimidating.
Again, we would like to remind you, spoiler alert.
I think at this point, yeah, Eris dies. Oh
No!
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 Oh no!
That's okay. I hate Eris. She
Poison's
has a
actually a
personality of a
guy.
doorknob.
But going back to this thing, the Pursuer is just this ridiculously intimidating thing that just materializes. And you would expect him to be a boss fight. He's not a boss fight. I
Let me
mean,
tell
he
you
can
something
be.
about.
Hang on.
Okay.
You can tell me about the later.
No, okay.
I'm still talking about the Pursuer.
Right, okay.
He gets airlifted in while you're trying to do stuff in the first area. You're like, this is amazing, and then you just get your ass kicked by this guy who you have no chance against. You're like, what the fuck is this thing? And then you go back and he's not there. You're like, well, what is this all about? You wind up going through the area and he has his own boss arena. It's a roaming boss. So he will come out to kick the shit out of you. I don't know if he'll do it in the standard game, but in New Game Plus, he will follow you around and kick the shit out of you. Because that's in his description for his soul, is he will relentlessly pursue the undead.
That's
And
ridiculous.
he will show up and beat the ever-living fuck out of you. And that's what's going to happen. He will make you taste his shield, and then he will floss you with his sword and spin it. He's ridiculous. It's the most intimidating thing I've ever seen.
Some of the toughest enemies in that game aren't bosses.
They are not.
Like that red-eyed knight thing in Demon Souls. That guy was. I beat the Tower Knight and I was like, this guy's gonna be easy now. Walked up to him and just got destroyed again. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
It's the same sort of intimidating, though, where, you run into him first, and all the rest of the enemies just mindlessly shamble towards you, and that's whatever. Even the blue-eyed dudes, who show a
Yeah.
little bit of intelligence, and the
Yeah.
red-eyed dude just turns and looks at you.
And you know.
And you're like, I am so fucked.
It's hilarious. The first time I was just running through the castle, and I was probably like after like my second death or something, so it was very early on. And I like ran up there and I'm like, oh, what's that guy? And I ran a little closer, and all of a sudden he did that. And I was like, nope, nope, nope. I hauled it back. I was like, nope,
Oh.
because you could tell like
Yeah.
they set him up perfectly. It's
Oh,
great.
it's beautifully. How far, just to take a little bit of a tangent here, how
Uh-huh.
far are you into Shadow of the Colossus?
It is Shadow of the Colossus, like the fourth, fifth, or sixth Colossus. I think the last one was the one where you have to like, it's like there's a giant lake and then you have to like climb up like these shattered ruins to get on top of like this tall building. I can't remember what the Colossi was, but it's like it was almost like I don't know how to explain it. It was like it. I just realized that it just sounds like everything else,
Yeah,
but
but regardless,
it was like the fourth. I think it was the fourth Colossi.
have you seen the final Colossus?
No, I haven't.
I would like you at some point to get there
Uh huh.
because it's that same kind of intimidating. All of the rest of them are mindless. Slight degree of intelligence, but they're animals.
Yeah.
That one just turns and looks at you. And
You.
it is
What have
so
you done?
wonderfully done. But oh, and the rest of them, they're giant turtles or like huge
Yeah.
tiger thing, and that one just looks at you, and you're like, I am so boned, so boned.
Oh man, it's great. Okay, so the thing. Okay, so about the Souls games, this actually reminds me. It's so funny. They have such a fantastic atmosphere to them.
Oh, beautiful.
It's so dark, and then all of a sudden someone makes like a completely left hand comment in that game. It's just like the funniest thing that you're not expecting, and it happens all the time. It's like a game. It's a serious game that doesn't take itself seriously.
uh, Example being from Dark Souls, Solaire, who's
Yep.
just this guy. For those of you who have not played this guy who crafted his armor, it looks like he took a soup can and put it on his face, and he built his own shield, and then he drew a picture of the sun making an awful face on it. And then he put the same thing on his armor, which also looks like it's made out of soup cans. And
Oh my
his
goodness.
goal is he's you just run into him and he is staring
It's the
directly
sun.
into the sun, talking about how awesome it would be to be the sun.
Oh man.
This is the sort of shit you run into. And there are other people that part of the bit to the game is there are other people in the game who have gone certifiably insane.
Oh yeah.
That is legitimately called going hollow. You have
Yep.
found nothing to your life, you keep dying and respawning, you go hollow, and you become an insane zombie.
Oh
He
yeah.
is one of the sane people in the game who is staring directly into the sun with a hand drawn sun making a funny face on his shield.
Perfect commentary on humanity.
It is absolutely wonderful.
The game is Shakespearean. Can I
And,
just say
and
that
then
it is
he,
Shakespearean?
it is. And then he insinuates that you're gay later.
Ah, delightful.
That's,
Yeah,
I love that game
so
so
many
much.
fantastic games. And then there's like sad moments in the game too. It's just it's so, the storytelling in that game is done in the way that games should be told by story. It's not invasive, but it's there.
You get as much story as you want,
Yeah, exactly.
as you're willing to look for. It's a little bit like how Super Metroid tells its story, which
Yeah.
is I want more Metroid games to do that. I don't want Adam to sit there and be like, "Bird there, but there, I am your CO.
Mega Man, push A to do the thing.
But my CO, he told me back in the day. I don't care about that. Super Metroid had like a paragraph of dialogue, and some of it was the completion score at the end of the game.
it's just it's my favorite type of storytelling.
It's
Is
beautiful.
the kind where it's there, but it's not like I could totally not investigate the story if I wanted to. But if I want to do a little digging, it's there. The
You
way that like Dark Souls and Demon Souls and Dark Souls 2, I would imagine, they set themselves up. It's the story doesn't like spoon feed you,
no,
much like the gameplay. It gives you a sword and says, "Go, go, go get it for yourself."
yeah. Most
And
of the
so,
story to the game
but the way
doesn't
it
happen
sets
in
it
the
up,
story.
it has such an intriguing premise to it that you want to find out. Well, what's the deal? What's going on? I mean, like, what is there? There's like an intro cutscene, and then after that, it's like Just go figure out the story for yourself
Exactly.
if you want. Otherwise, just stab crap a bunch of times, and they're like, okay,
And like most of the story to it isn't actually in the game even. Like you can go through and not know who the fuck this guy is or who the fuck that guy
yeah,
is, but then you run into like items that will have a
we'll
description
mention,
that'll
yep.
slowly build on who this character actually is, and then you realize and you're like, oh, that's so cool.
The cool thing too is like in Demon Souls, and I don't think they did this in Dark Souls, but in Demon Souls, the loading screens will have like pictures of characters.
No,
Like,
for Dark Souls they have item descriptions.
yeah, so like they have like King Alon, and I don't know who King Alon is, but I'm like that guy. Well, not I kind of have an idea now because I did a little digging. But I'm like, who is that guy? What does he do? And then I saw like Ed and what's the other blacksmith? Some other Ned. I don't
uh,
know. But then I was like, oh, and then like all of a sudden I was like, well, here's that one guy, but where's the other blacksmith? And then I was like, oh, here's the maiden in black. Okay, well now I
uh-huh.
found her. And then I was like, okay, what's your deal? Why do your eyes look funny? And so you start digging around, and it's like, oh, well, she's got candle wax on her eyes, and you're like, oh, that's weird. And you're like, well, I wonder why that is. And so like I'm trying to figure out why that is, and just like it's a game that makes me want to know the story,
Yeah.
as opposed to being like, yeah, I just want to skip it and play the game.
Um, that in Dark Souls they do pretty much the same thing, except without those loading screens telling you things. You just run into them.
Oh
Like
yeah.
if you've got let's say you've got the master key, and you go from
Delightful.
Undeadburg, and you're like, I'm gonna open this tower door. And you open the tower door, instead of going up to the boss, you go down. And you take the stairs. And you look and you see this guy who is wielding the biggest hitting device you've ever seen, because it's literally the tooth of a dragon that he got mad enough to tear out of its face and beat it to death. And he's wearing a shed. He's
Yep.
just like a mountain of armor. And then he hauls ass up the stairs, despite how much all of this shit must weigh, and beats your face into the curb. And given all of that, because you will not kill Havel on your first go through, he will make you clip with the stairs. He hits you so hard. You will not beat Havel. And you're just like, why does he move so fast? And why is he down here? And then you get information and you slowly piece it all together and you're like, my god, this is amazing.
Yeah. It's just it's so that's the way games should be. I mean, look, there's games that I get it. I mean, cinematic story experience is cool and all. Like I think Uncharted does storytelling well, but that's the kind of game it sets itself up for, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's too many games that are like Dark Souls that try to set up a story like Uncharted, and it just doesn't make sense.
Dragon's
And also,
Dogma?
I feel like what's I don't know. I can't remember. Do they have cutscenes? I know they have
Yeah.
like a few cutscenes.
They have
Oh
a
yeah,
few.
no, they definitely have cutscenes. I don't know. Yeah, I guess Dragon's Dogma, but it kind of worked. But I don't know. I mean, there's too many games where it's just like bajillion cutscenes and kind of gameplay, and it's like, well, why don't you
Yeah.
just make that a movie? Final Fantasy 13.
Everybody needs to like take a step back, and I'm going to mention it again. Super Metroid. When you go up against Kraid for the first time, you go in and you go down into the lower depths of
Yep.
Brinstar after you've done all of this shit,
Yep.
and you go and you're fighting all the dudes, and you're down this corridor, and then you fight Kraid, and you kill him, and you're like, my god, it's amazing. And then there's a door behind him, and you're like, what's this door? And you go through the door, and there's like a small, kind of peaceful area, a little bit of spikes just sticking out of that. But what draws your attention is there is somebody else there who has been dead for a very long time. And you're
Yeah.
like, what is this? He's got bugs all over him. He's like oozing blood everywhere. And there's another door. And you piece A and B together. There's no dialogue telling you any of this. You just look at it and you
Yeah.
understand. And then you go and you actually fight Kraid.
See,
Do
that's like,
that.
oh my goodness, it's like Dark Souls is that too.
Yes.
Like you'll just see like this skeleton chilling there. You're like, oh, that's this, and then all of a sudden you get punched from left field, and you're like, oh, okay, I see what you did, game.
It
I see.
also is the only game I've ever seen to use the multiplayer component to do that as well. Where
Oh yeah.
you'll just like you'll go up to a fog door and there'll be like nothing there. That's whatever. And then you'll see another door that's just surrounded by a sea of orange, all of which read, "Dear God, please help me." And you go in and you become one of that sea of orange because you just got punted through a wall.
Yeah, that's another too. It's funny because it's not. It is a multiplayer game, but even like, even if you don't, even if you don't play like the multiplayer aspect, if you don't summon people, there's still so much multiplayer there. It's still a community driven game because of the way that those notes work.
Yeah,
There's like the times when recently it was in Demon's Souls, and I was playing that castle, not the prison level.
yeah.
And so I'm just like derping through it, and I got past the thing that shoots all the arrows out, and I walk up this giant spirally staircase, and I get up at the top, and I'm looking for keys so that I can frack
Sage
the
Freck.
the sage. Yes, the sage. And then so I'm walking, and I see these keys on the store, and there's just this zombie like dude, like all the prisoners were in there, and all of a sudden I talk to him, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'm just a humble dude, servant. I won't hurt you." And I see just all this red circling, and I'm like, "Oh, what does all these notes say?" Click on 'em, liar. Click on it, liar. Click on it, liar. And I'm like, "Huh, maybe I shouldn't trust this guy." And so I stabbed him, and that completely changed the way I played the game as compared to somebody who maybe played earlier on and those notes weren't around.
Now, my question being, is this the guy who, if you look over, it's sort of overlooking a small cathedral?
Yeah, and it's like
Okay.
he's got these yellow glowy stuff all around him.
Yes. There are two ways of finding out what he does. The first is what you did, and you saw the sea of orange, and it's like, this guy's an asshole.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. The second is if you go down into that cathedral.
Okay.
Um, since you've already killed him, you will not be able to experience this
Does he?
firsthand.
He does something.
He will enhance the things in that room because
He's
he's
like a mage.
he is. He's an
That's yellow
asshole.
glowy crap.
He is an
What a
asshole.
what a. Can I just say for a second that that game is made by trolls? Just nothing but trolls.
I don't think trolls is the correct word for it. It's people who expect you to pay attention to the game,
That's true.
which is why I think
But
that it seems so unbelievably difficult is because 99% of people who play video games are expecting to just pin down B and sprint through the level and understand nothing about the game.
the
They
funny
want you
thing,
to slow down and smell the roses and
no, you're
hopefully
right.
not get stabbed in the face with them.
That game is about learning. It's about learning at every single point. There is no there's no real tutorial for that game because the entire game is a tutorial.
It is.
Unlike most games where it's like here's a tutorial and now you just like go on put you set your car to cruise and you're just gone for the rest of the game. And like if you like I said, like the community really they're like, "Oh, hey, look, there's a secret over here. Here's this, here's that." And you're like, "Oh, that's cool. That's really helpful. Thanks, guys." And so like I said, it's a community driven game. But to be fair, that guy is super suspect. First of
Oh
all,
yeah.
he's the only one of those freaking weird looking guys that talks. Second, he's glowing yellow. And third, he's like, "No, I won't hurt you. Not me.
He's also
No."
like explicitly he's like, so what's all that yellow glow about? Oh, don't worry about it. It's not for
This
you to
is
worry
your
about.
sword, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And then actually, if you even play earlier, the sage guy, he has like a little glowy thing too. So I mean, you could probably piece that together. I don't know. I don't know things.
Possibly.
But the game's so well designed.
It is.
The people who want to get into game design, just take notes. Just lots of notes. Honestly, that game is like, and I feel like I'm almost insulting Demon Souls a bit when I say this, but that is like the Castlevania of today. The reason why I say that is because Castlevania had some flaws, but overall, that game was amazingly designed,
Certainly.
except for the backfall. That was garbage.
The backfall?
Yeah, when you get hit, you fall backwards in Castlevania.
That was bullshit, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so I mean, that's how all the Lords of Shadow games should play.
yeah.
Konami. Speaking of which, the guy left.
I heard.
Lots of news today.
Ah, well. But, I suppose we're getting to that point where we should probably start wrapping
Wrapping up.
things up.
But I want to talk more about the
Well,
Souls.
we've got lots to talk about because we'll have podcast. More podcast.
More?
Well, yes. Also,
More?
I'm in a house where they're making macaroni and cheese downstairs.
That's
And I've
true.
just been smelling that the entire time. And I have resisted the urge to just rip my laptop out of the wall and sprint downstairs. I don't have a battery, by the way, so that wouldn't end well for the podcast.
Would have
Uh,
been funny, though.
we'll cover one more point to this, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're quite prepared for since you've mentioned that you've played so many hours of Demon's Souls, but there's a particular game that I asked you to have a look into. If I remember correctly, that was
Yeah.
Secret of Evermore.
Secret of Evermore.
Did you play it all?
No, I completely forgot about
Okay,
it.
so for next week,
Secret of Evermore.
Secret of Evermore.
Yep.
I'm giving you a
I've,
treat this time, and for some reason, there you left it sit.
I've been playing Demon Souls, Doc. You can't hold that against me.
I can hold that against you. It's part of the podcast. So I make you play shitty games. If you would like me to find a shitty game, I can make that happen.
No, please don't.
I can find a copy of Lunar Dragon Song very quickly.
Oh,
It
that's so
comes to
sad.
me. It's not that I find it, it just shows up.
It like knocks on your door, asks you to take it back. But you know that's an abusive relationship. You can't walk back into that relationship, Doc.
No, I
You need
can't.
to move on with your life.
It beat me with a stick. It shook up all my beer. Mm.
No.
It's all foam. God damn it.
Good times. Good
Indeed.
times, indeed. All right. So yeah, that's gonna do this episode of the podcast. You can find me on the Twitters, twitter.com/Mega Dinosaur, and YouTube is the same thing. Go, Doc.
In English, you can find me on Twitter at PhDXSnulz. That's XSNULZ in the Phoenician alphabet.
Oh, well, isn't that fancy?
Okay, can we take a just the last bit here? There's some asshole driving up and down the road on a motorcycle. Just the entire time. It's been the most distracting thing ever.
Oh,
Oh. Well, ladies and
that's.
gentlemen,
Mm-hmm.
it's been good. Uh, sorry
Been
about any
fun.
Dark Souls 2 spoilers.
There's a lot.
Hopefully the pursuer doesn't kick your ass so much. Hopefully he does. I don't know. Whichever you would like.
I
Some people are
mean,
masochistic like that.
hey, some people are into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're not judging you.
Kick my ass harder. Alright. But, this is Pass the Controller Podcast.
Bananas!
Bananas.